Hi there, in this video we're gonna learn about tapping on the button and listening to button click in Android. Okay, so just go ahead and open your Dice app project and then open the main activity class. So here first we need to have a reference to our button that we added to our view. So we need to open the project pane and then go to Res, Layout, Activity underline main.xml. Here I'm gonna switch to the Design tab. And now I'm gonna select this Roll the Dice button. Inside this attribute section, we have this ID attribute. I'm gonna specify an ID for this button. So let's name it as BTN Roll the Dice. So when we set an ID for the button, it can be accessed from the Java code. And if you switch to the text view here, you can see that now if I click on this preview and then click on this button, it's gonna highlight this button XML code, and now there is a new attribute here, the ID attribute. So you initialize the ID attribute like this: @ plus ID / and then the ID that you want to specify for your view. So this is BTN Roll the Dice. So the reason that I say that specifying an ID for the view, not the button, is that all these elements are subclasses of view. In other words, all of these elements that we're dealing with are actually views. For example, this button is a view, or this image view is also a view. You'll learn more about the concept of subclassing and inheritance later in this course. But for now, just know that the button is actually a view. So now let's go back to the main activity class. Now that we have set an ID for the button inside our design layout, now we can have a reference to that ID inside our Java code. How we can do that? So here in line number 22, I have a code that is actually creating a button. So let's change the name of this button to BTN Roll. And then we need to have a reference to that button. So here I'm gonna say find view by ID. So it's just gonna go ahead and find the view that we created in our activity underline main.xml. And now we just need to pass the reference, the ID. How? r.id.btn roll the dice, semicolon. So here I just created a button object. The name is BTN roll, assignment operator. Here, because we have already created the button object inside this activity underline main.xml, and we already have an ID for this button, inside the main activity class, I just need to specify a reference to that button object. So I just need to say find view by ID. And then inside the parentheses of this find view by ID, I need to pass this reference, R. So the R class is an auto-generated class that is going to contain all of our resources and IDs. So the R class contains the ID of that button, r.id.btn roll the dice. That's it. So now we can do something with that button. So for example, when the user taps on this roll the dice button, something is going to happen. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say BTN roll dot set onClick listener. So the set onClick listener is going to set an onClick listener to this BTN roll button. That means that when the user taps on this BTN roll button, it's gonna listen to that tap and it's gonna let us know that something has happened. In other words, it's gonna listen to the clicks of the user on that button, and it's gonna execute a method called onClick. So that method will be executed when the user taps or clicks on this BTN roll button. So now we need to pass the listener to this set onClick listener. I'm gonna say new, and then just type in here view. So make sure that you hold down the shift key on your keyboard and then type in here V. So the V is going to be the view. And then Android Studio is going to provide you with this view.onClick listener, a pair of curly braces and 3 dots. Make sure to choose this one and then press on enter key on your keyboard. So now you can see that some codes are generated here. We added a listener to this set onClick listener, and then we've got this onClick method here. So this onClick method is executed when the user taps on this btn role button. So whatever code I put inside the curly braces of this onClick method will be executed when the user taps on this button. So let's go ahead and output something to the logcat. Let's say log.I. So I here stands for information. First, we need to specify the tag. So just put 2 double quotes, and inside the double quotes, just type in here my DICEapp, comma, and then we need to specify the value that is going to be outputted to the console when the user taps or clicks on this btn role button. So I'm gonna say btn role is tapped now, and then let's just put a semicolon at the end of our statement. Now we are ready to run our application and see the result. Let's go ahead and run the program, and then choose an emulator or your physical device, and then click on OK. So now let's go ahead and click on this roll the dice button, and then let's go back to Android Studio, and at the bottom click on this logcat. When you click on this logcat, it's going to show you the area that is called the logcat. So in this area you can find information about your application. So here make sure that in this specific filter we've got this verbose, and inside this search bar just go ahead and enter your tag, the tag value that we put here inside the double quotes. I'm just gonna copy this value and put it here inside the search bar and then paste it here. So now we've got a value. It says btn role is tapped now. Why this value is here? Because we tapped on this button, roll the dice. So if I go ahead and tap on this button again, it's gonna output some value to the logcat. btn role is tapped now. So it's very interesting because every time I tap on this button, something is outputted to the logcat. So that's because of this line of code, log.I, and this tag and this text that is outputted to the logcat. So here you should know something about the Java code. Just like the XML code, we can also expand or collapse our Java code. For example, I can collapse this onCreate method by just clicking on this dash sign. If I click on it, it is now collapsed. If I just click on it again, now it is expanded. In the next video, we're gonna learn how to generate random numbers in Java. I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.